than any. I look in the audience that you all here, and I can't help but to reflect with tears in my eyes. With hat, my wife Gloria bringing the presence with me here today. We were kids. This is 2 years old in North Korea. And you now wait to be around and you get older, but we all in the same Catholic program. Back then, the ages wasn't that much different because we had our school began to start. It had nothing to do with ages. We were all together. Yeah, said that I want to read much information that I have here. Another 10 not boxes to give you the third time that I can go over every detail what I went through with my family, most of them are my siblings of Imam, the Imam family. They are from this life, I would say, but they're not gone because we know that whatever that Allah creates is never destroyed. It just transforms into another dimension or another existence that we believe, as we say, Imam, or life after this, the life to come. Reflecting back on our history and looking at you all in the faces today, I won't compare ages when I see you, but if I said it, most of you all are still wasn't even born. And a little boy before 1910 wasn't even here. You can't even imagine. I said, well, they should make a movie this about what they did with back then when they didn't have, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, they had just started electricity in the homes, but most homes back then had oil heaters, and it also had stove where you could get it back and put a coal in there. That's how we heated up the homes. You know, some of you all remember that. And you have electricity going out, they did. So I go back that far in that time. I think about the stories that the pioneers would give us about when they first met. What the stories that they give us about what happened and how they would come in what we might call into the temple or come into Islam as they were trying to struggle to learn. But I'm going to give you some information. I hope that you will accept it in the right way because it's you should know this and know that we hear the word Nation of Islam, but I use the word original. I use the word original more because we want you to know what it was all about. That's the main part. What was it all about? Was it a movement that was against America or against a certain race of people, etc.? No, it child is born and most of it's in nursery, some people are born at home, it doesn't matter. But when we're all born and we're all babies in the nursery, and they all started crying. But look at all these different people from Saudi Arabia, from Egypt, from Ghana, from Mexico, America, whatever. They all mixed up babies and they all hollered. But none of them hollered in their language, their parent language. No baby cries in Spanish. No baby cries in Arabic. No baby cries in Turkish. None of it. We all cry the same. Well, that's a sign of God, isn't it? That is something very unique about that all these babies come different in the world, and they all cry the same. It's a sign of God to let us know that we are all connected, what we call root soul. And the language that we speak when we first came into this world is the language of the soul. So when a person is trying to learn a language, you can easily learn 7 languages with no problem at all. Well, how can I learn 7 languages at one time? Because they're all connected with the soul. There's certain basic sounds, but all language is still the same. It's just the matter of this one tune is longer than the other, hard and shorter, whatever it might be. It's different tones, but you will be able to understand it partly because it's connected with your soul. I want to show you a picture here that stays with me and my wife all the time when we travel. You see this picture here? It's in the book that we have that I wrote with a lot of help of the first national independent Islamic school system in America. This is a picture here of the Muslim women. They all dressed in long dresses and scarves on. This is 1935 in March in Chicago, Illinois, and it's one like this in Detroit. And I think Imam Karim were familiar with it a little bit too, because he's been there a little bit, not way back then, but he's been out there long enough. And he's a great pioneer in our community and a well-respected brother, Imam Karim. On this picture here is our parents, glorious parents. The man right here is his grandfather, and then his mother's in there and father. I have more pictures than this, and you have to read the rest for yourself, but to make a point of the spirit of what I live with every day, all the time, this is what keeps me going. And this other picture here is, they talk about in the news today about hijab, dressing, how you should dress. Muslim dress is what God establishes in the Quran. And the way that you dress, you can't say that particular brother or that sister, that's Muslim dress. That's your dress. But the real dress is decent dress. It's called libas in the Quran. Decent dressing. But how do we dress? We dress according to our culture. insult anyone, but I'm only making a point. Sometimes when you're not getting attention, you're going to do certain things to get attention. You don't have to do that. Get attention with your character. Get attention with your goodness, how you treat people, and etc. and etc. So much for that, to let you know, this little girl over here, this was 1957. These were some African American girls dressed in a nice attire. She had a scarf on and one of them is my wife Gloria was here. She was only I think she's about 14, 15 years old. They dressed like this, like you beautiful sisters dressed in here now. They was dressing like that in the 1940s. This is 1957. It was on a top magazine. For the first time, they were showing Muslim dress, but they had said some other things. They called them black Muslims and etc., which is not true. There's no black Muslim, there's no white Muslim. We're just human beings in different colors. Some words I want to bring to you to explain the community, how we made it through all of this struggle that we have done for one reason, and I'll say it in a few words. W.D. Farad, who came here around 1937, as history gives it, his sole purpose, and we believe that it was by God's intervention, to come and save a people that was put into slavery and that was taken, everything was taken from them that God had given to them by nature. And it was there to bring us back to our true identity as human beings, not as blacks, but as human beings. That was a struggle. So what did he do? He created, through the help of Clara Muhammad, who was the wife of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, through her assistance and through the guidance of W.D. Farad, it took some time with what I'm saying. He wanted to create an environment, an independent environment, where the African American will be able to study without the interference of society, so that we'll be able to educate ourselves and be dependent entirely on God. So they created what we call the University of Islam. It wasn't a University of Islam, but it was there to one day that we will have a university. So everything that was presented to us back then, even when we were coming up, it always made us feel good about ourselves. Now what I did today, I think I still have it. Yes, I do have it. It wasn't part of the plan, but it is part of the plan. You know, and I have a tape of the Imam, W.D. Muhammad. It's only about 3 minutes. And he said something so eloquent to explain why such type of terminology was used back then to make us feel good about ourselves and the reason why. So when I read what I'm going to read, then I'll let you hear his voice to see how he explains the teachings of W.D. Farad that kept us feeling good about ourselves and to know that we had a future of hope. Words, I want to say these words and I'll explain it as I can when I conclude. And keep these words in mind. One word is used, some Arabic word. One word is called manfuf. Manfuf. The next word is called i'tasam. I'tasam. The next word is called idam. Idam. And the next word is called banana. some of you all learned some good presentation from the sisters in terms of what we went through with as we did go through it even as women. One was my wife and Dr. Dahlia and others made some good presentations from what I hear. These words is directly explaining to you how we made it from the very beginning without no knowledge of the Quran, very little religion, but not the religion that helped us, but how we stayed together. How did faith work? It was faith, and it was also trust, faith, and we believed in leadership, but more than anything, we were families. Very important during that time because we needed each other. So remember, Malfuf, Qasim, Banana. 4 other words. These are 4 words that our Arabic teacher gave to us. And we wondered, why would he give us these words? This was in 1948 when we had our first Arabic class, Quranic Arabic class. And the man knew very little about it. He was from Jerusalem. From Jordan, the first Arabic teacher was. The first word, he said, I'm going to teach you all Arabic. But I'm going to give you some words to think about how Arabic sounds. The first word is teen. It's fig. And then it was jaws, sound rhyme. Jaws, mouths, lows. And boy, that was sounding so good. Jaws, lows, mouths. Now, I don't know if he's making fun of us, but he was teaching us something. 4 words. Tig, he was talking about the almond, he was talking about the olive, and then he was talking about bananas. Now, what kind of lesson is that to give someone? Almonds, teens, figs, and etc., and then you wind up with mouths, bananas. Okay, we'll leave it to side for a minute. The next is, studying our history, we think about the conditions of people. Why does people act the way they do? Why do people think the way they do? Why do people seem like they can't learn? Why do people feel less about themselves, etc.? Why does people, and some seem to get ahead, and some people don't have no confidence in themselves to know they can do it, but I can't. Well, I want to read something to you, the facts that actually happened to us. God says in the Quran, هو الذي يصوركم في الأرحام كيف يشاء لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم. Most of you understand what that means. It is he who formed you in the wombs. However, by his will, there is no deity except him, the exalted and mighty, the wise, the supreme some type of way we feel unfilled. We were given life, breath of life, and freedom to live, freedom of thought. We think that the free to excel and etc. These things Allah has put inside of us when we were first born in our mother's womb, how God formed us. Nature keeps us connected with our ancestry, and if we are separated at birth, we were connected in the womb of our mother when we were first born. But what is it called? It's our ancestry. But inside of us, Allah has put this in every human being, an orphan. And what is this orphan? This orphan is your name's hidden essence as ancestry. This is the way the Imam pronounces the word. He called it our nature's hidden essence ancestry. This is in every mother is connected with us. Knowingly, at labor, giving birth, the woman comes into labor. She pushes as an effort 3 times. Now, a woman, when they're in pain, I don't think they're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4. But nature is telling you 3 times. And when you push from the 3rd time, the child comes out. I won't go into details because I had a joke about my wife. I told her, said, I broke my shoulder and I was really in pain. And she said, you was? I said, yeah. I said, it felt like labor pains. I'm not going to tell you what else she told me. Brothers, look, if we had the labor pain they had, you would be assisting your wife from now on. You'd be right there helping them. I won't go in that either. When we were in the womb, we were fighting to get out. I'm telling you scientific, medical term now. We finally were delivered, only for a moment, then separated. Disconnected from the mother, the orphan. Then we are introduced to our mother for the first time, as one doctor said, when the child is born, and they're introduced to the mother for the first time. Then the doctor returned the baby back to the mother. But there will always be a memory there, no matter what it is, you bring the baby back or not, the memory is always there. So here's what happened to us. When we were put into slavery, we were born into slavery, and the child was born into slavery. When the child was delivered, it was never returned back to its mother. It stayed with the slave master. And then what happened? According to science, I didn't know this, but science says, it says that God has created, what it mentions about how God has created all of us by nature to excel and etc. like this here. But he says that, science says here, there's a lot of detail to it. Science says that when you separate the child from the mother and don't bring the child back to the mother to stay with the mother to be nursed, because they need the mother's milk, they need the mother's care. In due time, it affects the human being growth. Your development is unnatural after this. This is science is telling you. You can read it for yourself on the author. Because if they didn't return back, for years and years of doing plantation, we became the slave master's life. We took on their name, they gave us their religion, and we became them. Our voices became them. We didn't know anything about our cultures. We didn't know anything about our diversity. We only is what they said that we are. They gave us their religion. They gave us all of that. But it was something inside of the baby that was crying, that was missing, that he was disconnected from his origin, the origin. That brings us to the beginning of the Nation of Islam. That's how it started, because God sent the W.D. Farad to come and tell us, I'm ready to connect you back to your origin and bring you back home. So all through the teaching is what? Do for self. We're trying to help you to bring yourself back. So all of the teachings became self. Coming to yourself. Know yourself. Do for self. Self-reliance. This was the teaching through the whole gesture of the history of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and W.D. Farad. And he came and reconnected us back with our origin, with our moms, with our original. Now we know who we are. We worked on it for a long time. And then what happened? African American people began to rise up and say, I'm black and I'm proud. They even began to appreciate their hair. They quit that you might call frying their hair, or whatever it was they were doing. Everybody began to grow, come back natural the way that God has them. So you begin to feel good about yourself. I look at my skin, this is beautiful. You look at your skin, it's beautiful. That's the way God brought us here. But He wants us to know this so that we can appreciate ourselves. If you don't appreciate yourself, you never grow. And that's the whole part of life itself, is to come into yourself. So they gave us prayers. Surely I have turned myself to thee, O Allah, who originated the heaven and the earth, trying to be upright. That was our prayers. Surely I have turned myself over to him who originated, not the Farad, to who originated the heavens and earth, trying to be upright. And that was the name of the people during the time of Prophet Muhammad, when there was no revelation. Prophet Muhammad lived among the people who were called the Hanifas, people who were trying to be upright. Brothers and sisters, certainly I could say much more in terms of how we begin to rise in teaching ourselves in the homes, basements, garages, whatever. A whole list of people that came in the community of back then that didn't have the regular job in factories or whatever. So my mother, my father, Gloria's mother and father, all of them, how were they making a living? They worked in rich people's homes, sold rags, wood. I used to ride in a wagon, let's say horse and wagon, and ride down the alleys in Chicago, picking up paper and wood and stuff, and then turn it at the end of the day and take that and turn that money in so we can keep what we call a school. We wasn't able to buy new books, we bought old books. Just as long as it has the word that we can read. And Elijah Muhammad had a vision one day. He said, religion of Islam, that's our religious way of life. So God gave him a vision, that they are to learn the original language. For what reason? So that they'll be able to understand the Quran and that they be understand their religion. But to really come into themselves, my dear brothers and sisters. I wanted to read a whole story. Oh, it's so beautiful. So what I'll do, I'll just put the papers like this and hold it for a minute and let you know that the original nation of Islam was built on the labor of our the African American women, and I can stand up and do this, and I salute you all for the sacrifice that you all have done to pave the way for our Muslim sisters from parts of the Middle East, wherever that they are. They feel so proud in their long dresses. You know how all of that started? It was the African American women who opened the doors for you to be able to do that. We have a long history. We have some good guests, some wonderful guests coming in here that we will be looking forward to meet. But also, I wanted to leave you all with something that we should never forget, that you should always feel proud about yourself to know that the equality belongs to everyone, not just no one person, and that God has created the duality, that everyone has the what we call it, the opportunity to excel in this life. Imam said, I wanted to make one thing on my ear. I wanted the people to hear. Besides, it was the Imam, Imam's name with his voice on it, where he was explaining one portion of W.D. Farrad's teachings that made some things clear to us in terms of the word university. All right. It'll take about 3 minutes to see. This is not a bomb. It's about what you call it, relax. That's the deal, we're all going up together. He's talking about W.D. Farrad. When he was talking about this esoteric language that was used during W.D. Muhammad's time that made us feel good about ourselves. Because when the white man said we was down, W.D. Farrad said we are the gods and the honor of the earth. All right, so W.D. Muhammad is explaining one portion of that. Takbir! Takbir! Assalamu alaikum. As a student and a student of history, and as a professor of clinical nutrition, we're always taught to look at primary sources. And in history, or in any discipline, the primary sources are first, as an academic who's writing, to publish papers in peer-reviewed journals. My primary source is a peer-reviewed journal. But as a historian, sometimes my primary source are the people who lived it. Imam Darnell Karim is one of the oldest living imams in the United States of America. Allahu Akbar. He's 88 years old. There's one more, Imam A.K. Hassan is 94. The difference is Imam Darnell Karim was born Muslim, and A.K. Hassan was a convert. So that's the only difference. So because Imam Darnell was born Muslim, he has Imam A.K. by a few years. So you were just blessed to hear from a gem. Please appreciate this opportunity. Because you just heard from a gem while he's still alive. And we're not having to read about, I wish I would have met him. I wish I would have talked to him. You heard from a gem. So at this point, we're going to move on to the next portion of our program. And we're going to have a conversation with Dr. Cornel West. At this time, I'm going to turn the program over to Imam Basheer Jones. He said, don't call me Imam, but Imam is a leader. And his work has earned that title. Some people give you a title because you graduated from a university. He gets that title because he's a real leader in the real world. And that's what makes someone a leader. So this time, Allahu Akbar. So this time I'm going to turn over to Imam Basheer so that we can welcome and have a conversation with Dr. Cornel West.
First, just want to honor Imam Darnell Karim, just giant in our community, and just to have the opportunity to be in his presence is like unbelievable. We're very, very excited. Number one, I want to say to Imam Basheer, we truly appreciate you, Imam. This conference has been a long time coming, and it's imperative that our community understand the importance of what African American Muslims have done in this country. And I'm the youngest of the quote-unquote leaders, and just to be in their presence and carry their bags and just talk to them and try to get wisdom from them, I'm just like so honored. As I am honored to sit in the presence of another living legend. Please make some noise for our brother, our leader and teacher, Dr. Cornel West. I'll be very, very brief in the introduction because Dr. West has to, as you know, he's running for something very special. So he has to get moving. So he has a couple minutes to speak to you. But you would have to say that this is an amazing thing that a man who is as busy as he is and running for a position that we need him to win, to take the time to stop by and give honor to the African American Muslim experience. For him to take a moment to be here with us is not a small thing, and to be here with our leaders and our giants. Dr. West, we truly appreciate you taking the time to do that. So we thank you and we appreciate you. And please, you are sitting in front of the leaders of our community. And they are excited to hear what you have to say.
First, I want to say that I am just so deeply blessed to be here. I wouldn't want to be in any other place before I get on the plane. Oh, yes, indeed. But I want to begin by just saluting Imam Darnell, Karim. What a time. What a time. What a long distance run. Longevity of integrity, longevity of service to the people, longevity of being true to his God, Allah. I don't exist as a black man without my black Muslim brothers and sisters who have shaped and molded me in a variety of different ways. I always begin with the fundamental truth of the modern world, which is I just don't know of a people who have been so chronically hated for 400 years and yet keep dishing out love warriors every generation. And it takes a number of different forms of it. When I think of the two freest black men ever produced by black people, given my own connection to being a descendant of barbaric U.S. slavery and barbaric U.S. neo-slavery called Jim and Jane Crow and American terrorism and lynching every 2.5 days for 50 years. But when I think of Muhammad Ali, and I think of Malcolm X, I say, my God. You can't talk about them without talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Always a element, crucial element within my neighborhood. Now I know there's a brother here from Glen Allen. Where's my brother from Glen Allen? There he is. Stand up, brother. This is Mr. Chocolate Side of Sacramento, California. Very much so. And then Naima Coltrane, Muslim sister, the greatest artist of the 20th century, gave up on being an artist because his addiction to heroin, got a job at the post office. She said, no, John, you got something to do. Let the Lord use you in such a way you might end up telling the world about a love supreme. But he doesn't exist without Naima. That was a Muslim black sister. Minister Louis Farrakhan was my dear brother. We go up and down in magnificent ways. Over 40 years we've been struggling together, loving each other and wrestling with various issues. And people always say, how is it, Brother West, that you come on the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and Fannie Lou Hamer, and you still love your black Muslim brothers and sisters? I say, what do you mean? Do you know who Irene and Clifton West was? Do you know what we learned at Shiloh Baptist Church? Do you know what I learned from the Black Panther Party? Do you know that I'm linked to the legacy of Marcus Garvey and a whole host of others? I'm a Jesus-loving free black man. I love on my own terms. So whatever deep disagreements I have, I got deeper love. Because I learn and I listen from my black Muslim brothers and sisters. I try to do that with everybody, but especially those who often are so thoroughly misunderstood and misconstrued. So when we look at that love train that flows out of hated people, transforming that hatred into levels of compassion and empathy the world just does not understand. I said you got to understand all of the various voices. That's the voices of a black folk. Getting to lift every voice, not lift every echo. I thank the Johnson brothers for that. Because we live in a world in which we got too many echoes expressing silos and not enough folk raising their voices. You got Muslim voices, you got Christian voices, you got Buddhist voices like Bell Hooks, who also means the world to me. And we've got some atheistic and agnostic voices too. James Baldwin and Audre Lorde mean much to me. And of course, you go back far enough, and they were deeply shaped by churches, a mosque, never forget our precious black Jewish brothers and sisters, the synagogues. Yet, that's who we are as a people. Generating love warriors in the face of hatred, generating freedom fighters in the face of terror, generating wounded healers in the face of trauma, and generating joy spreaders in the face of sorrow. I think of my Muslim brothers, even hip-hop, Rakim and them, like John Coltrane, hip-hop, Muslim brother. Is that just an accident? I don't think so. We're going to have to dig deep into the depths of the prophetic traditions of Islam and see the ways in which, I'll never forget when I was growing up there in Darnell, I used to read Muhammad's speech along with the Black Panther Party newspaper every week. I know Malcolm was the founder of that newspaper. He used to put in the red corner, Islam dignifies. Lord have mercy. Black folk, hated, terrorized, traumatized, in need of dignity, self-love, self-respect, self-defense, self-determination, and then allowing that to spill over and embracing all of humanity. Exactly. Oh, the voice of a child. Isn't that a beautiful voice? It's a beautiful sound. Beautiful sound. I mean, one of the things that I used to do when I was running, I was just part of the record program, Black Panther Party, and the prison program I've been blessed to teach in prison for 41 years. And I'm very critical of fellow black Christians because when I go into the prisons, for the most part, I see my black Muslim brothers. There's not too many black Christians. And that's been part of the crisis of the black church, right? You got the mega churches, but you don't have a lot of mega courage. You got the mega churches that don't have a lot of mega love. Well, the building fund is bigger than your prison ministry, then you know you missed out on what the gospel's about. See, I come from a Shiloh Baptist Church on 9th Avenue, my brother, Reverend Billy D. Cook and Deacon Henry said, Ray, my vacation Bible school teacher. And they told us that the blood at the bottom of that cross was not Kool-Aid. You just don't dip in and look for your blessing. Your life is fundamentally transformed. And I know I was a gangster before I met Jesus, and now I ain't nothing but a redeemed sinner with gangster proclivities. Pray for me. Pray for me. I stand in need of your prayers. Lord, you're running for president. That ain't nothing but a moment in the movement of a people who've been struggling for freedom and dignity with tremendous vision, serving others, loving their children and their grandchildren, and it spills over into intellectual politics. And if you're committed to truth, and the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak, committed to love, just as they know what love looks like in public. Yes, that's the kind of people I come from. And if you really want to understand, just put on some TV One and listen to Love and Need of Love today. We have a variety of different voices. We are connected. The crucial thing is, more than anything else, and that's why it's a blessing to be here with my younger brother, the younger generation, is to pick up this bloodstained banner. And the fundamental challenge is always, do not. I love this dialectical interplay with my precious little one. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. One of the things that I learned so well from the best of my black Muslim brothers and sisters of whatever particular stream and strand is in Islam. We've always had a variety of streams and strands. We still love each other. But be not afraid. I'd rather be dead than afraid. I'd rather be a corpse than a coward. God, Allah, cannot use cowards. You've got to work through your fear. We used to in Shiloh, linked to the Black Panther Party, Martina and others, We used to talk about how Jesus deniggerizes black people. I'll tell you one thing. When I first read the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I may have had some disagreements about white folk being devils and things. I know they had a lot of devilish behavior to keep track of. So if that's the metaphor you want to use, I understand. But they made in the image of God, just like everybody else, to keep track of that devilish behavior. Too much lynching, too much discrimination, too much degradation, too much rape, too much violation. Yeah, that's true. I understand the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I keep track of love in his heart. Even if I have to deal out with this, say the truth of war. Great respect for him. Going to Africa, learning the languages on his own. Then the towering Imam Darnell, Karim, still strong. How old is he now? 88 years young. Heart still overflowing. Being not afraid. Part of our problem these days in Black America is you got too many folk who will run around scared, intimidated, laughing when it ain't funny, scratching when it don't itch, don't want to raise their backs up and tell the truth. They just want to fit in and be well adjusted to injustice and well adapted to indifference. And that ain't nothing but spiritual decay. And we wonder why young people wondering whether they have access to prophetic fire. How they going to have access to prophetic fire if all they see are examples of folk who are obsessed with worldly success and have given up on moral and spiritual greatness and what it means to serve a God bigger than them, that gives them a calling, not just a career, that gives them a cause and not just a brand. So many young folk walk up to me, oh, Brother West, we just love your brand. We love your brand. I say, I ain't got no brand. People came here with a brand on their bodies. We gonna slave ships and slave oxen on the way to these slave plantations. I ain't got no brand. Brand ain't nothing but a market strategy to help your narcissistic, personalistic agenda so you can gain access to your career to live somewhere in some vanilla suburb and feel good about yourself. That's not my tradition. Cause is something you live for. Cause is something you die for. Cause is something you tell the truth and take the hits and the consequences and pursue love, not in the name of popularity, because God has called you to love and serve, beginning with the least of these, beginning with the orphans and the widows and the poor and the persecuted and the subjugated and the oppressed. That's what our young folk need. They need to see it. They need to feel it. They need it in their music. Curtis Mayfield's, Gil Scott Heron, and Anita Simone's. You all know what I'm talking about. Yusuf Lateef's, Max Roaches. Those are not just names, those are love warriors. We come from a tradition where the Spirit will not descend without some sound and song. How come? Because for so long, black people were told, Pharaohs on both sides of the bloody Red Sea. How you gonna make a way out of nowhere? Watch this. How you gonna step out on nothing and land on something? Watch this. Go to this mosque and see all that love taking place, all of that fellowship and community, all of that affirmation, all of that vision. It don't make no sense through the eyes of the world. So what? You need to come to this mosque and be transformed and changed. Yeah. That's the history of my people. Just because I'm a Jesus-loving free black man doesn't mean I can learn so much and embrace the insight and vision of Islam loving free black people. I'm not talking about the Muslims walking around Cowtown and adjusting and assimilating. I'm talking about the ones that think there is no God. Wow. And that means you're going to be in the world, but not. You're cutting against the grain. You got a calling that's distinctive and different than any other people. And they shall know you by your deeds, your They'll know you because you have a love overflowing that's connected to it. Oh, yeah, that gets me fired up. Now, I'm associated with the Holy Ghost in Shiloh Baptist Church. Now, I'm still a Jesus-loving free brother now. That don't mean I can't revel in the prophetic fire of my black Muslim brothers. So I'm blessed to be here. You're going to have me so on fire I can fly back to Harlem unaided. I don't need a plane. I just take off. I came to the conference. I came to the grand gathering of my black Muslim brothers and sisters. Oh, we got a black man flying from Houston to Harlem. You don't say. Yes, that's the kind of people I come from. And part of our problem when it comes to leadership, this is why I call abolition of poverty, abolition of homelessness, abolition of unhousedness, jobs with a living wage, free health care, free education, making sure you deal with ecological crisis, making sure you call genocide a genocide and will take whatever consequence goes with telling the truth about what's going on in Gaza. Our present Palestinian brothers and sisters shouldn't take too much courage to talk about genocide, shouldn't take too much courage to talk about the end of occupation and the end of a siege. If you could hardly get politicians to say ceasefire. How cowardly can you get? Of whatever color, but especially our chocolate leaders. Too many of our chocolate leaders view themselves as peacocks. Look at me, I'm the first one to do X. I'm so rich, I'm so smart, I'm so sophisticated, I'm in the mainstream, I'm on television, and I can hear the Honorable Elijah Muhammad saying peacocks strut because they can't fly. What you doing for the least of these? What you doing for Jamal and Letitia on the block? What you doing for the hood? What you doing for the reservation? What you doing for poor and oppressed people around the world? We don't need more peacocks. We need eagles. There's a genius named Aretha Franklin, who had a father who was a genius named Reverend C.L. Franklin. And he used to preach a famous sermon called The Eagle Stirs His Nest. He was associated with eagle, with black people, generating all that love and freedom, and healing, and joy. And what is it about the eagle? Style. It's like when I saw my brother today. He wanted to take a picture of me. I said, brother, you got too much style for me. I got to catch up with you. That's very important. Style ain't no plaything. It's your signature, how you move through space and time. And black folk got a certain way of stylizing space and time with swing. Don't mean a thing if I ain't got that swing. That's due. That's not just music. He said black people have made dissonance a way of life, living in the minor key. So we don't go play just right on the notes, we play under the notes, alongside the notes, on top of the notes, flatten the note out. How come? Because that's a blue note. And that blue note is a matter of the style that constitutes defiance and dignity and unbelievable determination from one generation to the next. And whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, or whatever, even when the electricity goes off, that's all right. Is it all right to just shoot?
You got a flight. I know Dr. West is.
What time is it? 3:23. I told you I'm flying on my own, honey. No. But let me stop here and open it up to you all. I want to get some questions and queries because I need to learn and listen as well. But thank you so much for having me first. Thank you so much for having me first. And I got my brother right in the back. Yes. Oh, brother, I can't be committed to truth and justice and love without being a fundamental proponent of reparations. I've been blessed to be part of that movement for over 40 years. I was blessed to sit at the feet of the great Queen Mother Moore, who was the mayor of Harlem. I was blessed to work with Randall Robinson, who was my dear brother. He just passed in the Virgin Islands. Remember his great book on the debt? He was founder of Trans-Africa. We used to meet Trans-Africa every month talking about reparations. We tried to take Tulsa, Oklahoma authorities to court, calling for reparations given the vicious attack on black folk in 1921. So reparations is a fundamental part of any talk about truth and justice in America. We want to know the damage done, and we want to repair, and we want to repair in the form of huge financial dividends. But it's truth and justice. But never, ever will any government come near repaying all of those precious bodies at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Let alone the bodies swaying in southern breezes on it. Let alone the psyches that have been, let alone the trauma that's been transferred generation after generation. So we should never think reparations is anywhere near a repaying. It cannot be repaid. It's just our debt to those who came before and the love that they poured into us, so that part of our life is a part of their afterlife, so they can be proud of us from the grave. That I can put a smile on Irene B. West and Clifton West's face from the grave, looking over the porch of heaven. How you doing down there, Cornel? Are you being true to what we taught you? I'm trying, Mom. I'm trying, Dad. I know you set such high standards. But when reparations can never repay what happened to black people. But yes, reparations is crucial. You look on our racial justice is number one. But it's a matter of truth and justice. That's what we're concerned about. Everywhere we look, truth and justice.
I know that we have a lot of questions. I know he's excited right now. We're excited to have him, but anybody that knows that taking these flights, we want to make sure you leave in the time
What a blessing.
As Dr. West is making this transition, I just wanted to just say a couple of words in saying that it's very imperative that we, as we look at this election, Imam Malcolm X said something very beautiful. He said that you are either at the table or on the menu. You are either at the table and on the menu. And as a Muslim community, we have been on the menu for way too long. I want to say to the Muslims and to the leaders who are here, we thank you so much for the service that you have given to our community. And it's imperative that we understand that in order for our community to go to the next level, we have to have political influence. We have to get out of the mindset in the conversation of politics being haram. We have to stop having this type of dialogue. What we've been shown in this community at this time, we've been shown how far the reach is of the Jewish community. Yes. In case you never knew before, you know now. All the way to ICJ, the international court didn't have the courage to say genocide, even though we see it with our own eyes. So we have to make sure, and as I talk to our brothers and sisters from the immigrant community, to understand that you are standing on the shoulders of the Muslims who are sitting in this room. And once you recognize that, and once we work together, then and only then will we be able to move our communities forward. If you don't recognize that, if you care more about Gaza than you care about Chicago, then that's a problem. If you care more about Kashmir than you do Cleveland and Detroit in the 5th Ward, you must care about what's happening to black and brown people right here in this country. If you don't care about your neighbors, you know, I tell people ask the question, why is it that black people are not standing up, the regular average black person are not standing up for Gaza as much as they should, as you think they should? What we know and understand as black people here in this country, that the majority of businesses in our community are Palestinian businesses and Indian and Pakistani businesses. That it's a problem because we know also in our community, not you, just your cousins in them, okay? Your cousins in them, who have sold pork and wine and alcohol to our community with la ilaha illallah in the background. So what we're saying to you and to us is that if you want to fight for Gaza and fight for Kashmir and Afghanistan, as we should, and Sudan and Somalia and Congo and everywhere else, there can't just be a ceasefire in Gaza without being a ceasefire in Chicago. There's got to be a ceasefire in our community. And once we recognize that, that's why this conference is so powerful. As we've been talking to Imam Basheer, we appreciate the Imam for what he's done in bringing together all these leaders and to make it crystal clear that the leadership in our community has been doing a phenomenal job for so long. And we also recognize to our sisters that we would not be where we are without you as our backbone. Our sisters have been the backbone of our community. We can't have a conversation without talking about Sister Clara Muhammad. We must talk about her. We must have the conversation about the sisters who have been the backbone and in some cases have more courage than us. So I close with this because Imam Wazir didn't tell me to do this part, so this is just me just talking a little bit. You know, when I ran for city council in the city of Cleveland and became the first Muslim city councilman in Cleveland's history, my biggest opposition was Muslims. My biggest opposition was Muslims. I have 2 masajids in my community that I was running for, and they was working with the opposition. I'm a 3rd generation Muslim, born in Brooklyn, New York, growing up at Masjid Taqwa. My grandparents became Muslim in the 70s. When I heard the Imam talking about State Street, we understood that, we recognized that. When you talk about Imam Hajj Wali Akram out of the city of Cleveland, Imam Qasim Khan who left Cleveland and came down here to Houston, when you talk about the history of the Muslims and the African American Muslims, Muslim men and Muslim women, we got a courage. And for my immigrant brothers and sisters, let me tell you something. You are safer in the hoods of America than you will ever be in rural America. And you know why? It's because of the Muslims who are in this room, who non-Muslims, they didn't even know how to say it. Salaam alaikum, sister. They don't even know how to say it. But they knew that it was a quick consequence if you mess with that sister with that scarf on her head. It was the African American Muslims who sacrificed everything for you to be able to be Muslim. So what I'm saying to you and to myself, you may not understand that, but your children do. They walk like us. They talk like us. They rap like us. They want to be just like us because they are us. They're more American than you. So if you want to be successful as a community, we can't just be focused on in-reach, we have to be focused on outreach. We have to be able to take care of our neighbors before we need their help. See, right now, we need their help. We need their help right now. And as a result of it, whatever you may feel about it, the Jewish community has understood that they've had a long history with the black community. They was a part of the civil rights movement. They was a part of a lot of different movements. They was a part of it. So as Muslims, we have to do the same thing. We have to serve our community. To all the imams here, I'll close with this. We are land rich but cash poor. It is time for us to stop depending upon fundraisers to take care of our communities. You got the land, okay? You own the land. Wallahi, I promise you this. Please listen to your son. If you do not do something with your masajids, it will become churches and nightclubs and strip clubs in a couple of years. I promise you that. That's right. If you don't do something with your masajids, the politicians have a way of coming in and taking it right from up under your nose. So what I'm telling you to do, look at what's happening in Atlanta right now, Atlanta Masjid. Our young brothers, $100 million development. The gentrification that's taking place in our communities. The only way that gentrification could happen today is because black Muslims came into these communities and cleaned them up. It was the black Muslims who came into Brooklyn and went against the Jamaican posse. It was the black Muslims who Philadelphia, Detroit, Cleveland, all across the country. And now, as a result of your work, gentrification is taking place. So why shouldn't you benefit from it? Because we are not willing to pass the torch. I know you won't post until you properly relieved, but it's time to be properly relieved. It is time to pass the torch, and it is time for an economic boom in our community. It is time to stop selling chicken dinners to take care of the lights at the masjid. That time got to be over with. It is time to take your land, take the land that you have, partner with developers, and we got the game plan. Partner with us. Let's bring the capital. Let's build up apartment buildings and businesses, and let that money take care of the masjid so we can be around for another 100 years. I beg you, if you don't have an economic plan for your masjid, you are behind. And I'm telling you, all around you, things are being built up. Just pay attention. Look at the condos getting built. Look at the businesses growing, running on your masjid. And we still talking about, brothers, we trying to raise $50. Man, we done with that. I'm tired of our children within masjids, all right? I'm tired of our children within black masjids seeing poverty. Islam ain't broke. And we ain't supposed to be broke. We're supposed to be wealthy. And it's okay to be wealthy. The Muslims of the past, when they read the Quran, they actualized it. When the Muslims read the Quran and it said Iqra, as a result of that commandment, we built universities and became the most educated of societies. But instead, we read the Quran today just to battle with one another, just to fight with each other and battle with this nonsense rather than building up our communities. So I say to you, it's time for economic growth. It is time for us to talk about 50-year plans. And I believe with all due respect that leaders like Imam Wazir and the leaders who are here, brothers and sisters, we have the plan. Let's not leave without a plan. And for my immigrant brothers and sisters, you have resources, you want to help, you want to make some money too, the best place to invest in is in inner cities. Well, invest with us. You'll get your money back, but more importantly, you will have an impact in the community. May Allah bless us, protect us, and strengthen us. To all of the elders who are here, to all of the imams and the elders, thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for what you've done for us. You know, thank you, because without you, we would not be here. Many of you have been imams for 50 years, and you still had to go get a job from somewhere else, and you sacrificed your family, and you sacrificed everything for us to be Muslim. I thank you. And to the wives and the women who are here who sacrifice your husbands, thank you. Thank you. I know it's been tough, but may Allah give you Jannah Firdaus as a result of your sacrifice. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Thank you, Imam.
Takbir. We're just getting started. Because in around 10 minutes, we have to give them. It's not fair. Who's coming next if we don't give a break now? It's not even fair to you. So we're going to take a break. And after break, we're going to hear from one of the foremost intellectual Muslims in America. You're about to engage with one of the greatest intellects that the Quran has produced in the indigenous Muslim community in 10 minutes. And that's Imam Faheem Shuaibe. So get your break now. Now don't go for a 30-minute break. It's a 10-minute break, inshallah. Let's take that 10 minutes and then let's get back so we can get back to the program. Assalamu alaikum.
Are there any Macintosh tech experts in the audience? And that young generation we always talk about.
Where's Fatima? I was coming.
Assalamu alaikum. So let's begin, inshallah. I'm going to ask the security to close the doors. And please give me your hand. Please give a round of applause for the security, mashallah. So as we begin, so we'll have this session from 3:45 to 4:45, and I know that there are many who are very conscious of Asr Salah. We are very conscious of Asr Salah also. It will be after 4:45, right around 4:55, that we'll pray Asr, inshallah, and then we'll break and have our open discussion. I'm going to read Imam Faheem Shuaibe's bio. But before I read it, I have to say that I have been Imam Faheem's student since I was 19 years old. And mashallah, I turned 50, inshallah, in a month or so. Inshallah, let's see another month. Inshallah, I'll turn 50. That means for 60% of my life, I've been a student among others. And sometimes in life, there's someone who if they say, I got you, it means I got you. And it's not a superficial I got you. It means that I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure you're successful. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to advise you when you need or come seeking advice. I'm going to look out for you when you're not around. I'm going to look out for you, and I'm going to make sure
interest is looking after. So Imam Faheem, collectively to my whole generation and the generation beneath us, he got us in a very real way. And I remember we were sitting, and I hope I can share this. We were sitting at a banquet around 2 months ago where we were celebrating our collective leadership, and my daughter Fatima started to recite the Quran. And Imam Faheem, water just began to drain out of his eyes. He started crying. And it wasn't sometimes people fake, it wasn't one of those no, it was real, genuine tears, because when you work for something so long, and this is my take on it, when you work for something so long, and you're praying for something, you want to see that future, and you see someone who was born of the work that you've contributed to, reciting the Quran with beautiful articulation, but also sounding like themselves, not sounding like a tape recorder, not putting out someone else's spirit, but they're reciting the Quran correctly. I mean, with makharij, everything, with tajweed, with with everything, right? Trained by Sister Alisa Kwan, trained by one very sensitive to not change them into something that they're not to respect what is genuine. And then you see that someone raised with the intention of the prayer of the mother of Jesus, of the mother, Mary's mother, when she prays and said, I dedicate to you what is in my womb exclusively to your service. And you might not see it directly, but you see it, and when you see it, it has to touch, because you realize what we've been working for is being realized. And that was a more confirmation that the true interest is in the success of the whole and in the success of the future. Imam Faheem Shuaibe, resident Imam of Shuaibe in Oakland, lifelong student of Imam W.D. Muhammad, Rahim Ali, and founder of Mariam, Muslim American Research Institute, advocating marriage and the Sacred Life Project. Inducted into the African American Intellectual Royal Family, addresses audiences across the country on religion, world politics, human relationships, and societal evolution. Hosts a website, aclearunderstanding.net, and 6 weekly blog talk radio broadcasts. A frequent lecturer at Cal Berkeley's Holy Hill with the Graduate Theological Union, which trains doctoral and postdoctoral students of philosophy, theology, and interfaith in American Baptist Seminary of the West. Lectured at the Commonwealth Club of San Francisco, California, AT&T, Chiron Corporation, University of California, Yale University School of Law, Howard University, Fordham University, New Jersey Institute of Technology, Princeton University, New York University, and University. Past board member of ING, an international interfaith education organization. Comments on the contemporary issues of the Muslim Journal, the Wall Street Journal, the Tribune, the Chronicle, the Mercury News, the New York Times, the LA Times, National Geographic, USA Today, the Christian Science Monitor, and others. He was also consulted on the award-winning PBS film projects on Islam in America. He was a delegate for several educational, religious, and interfaith and peace missions to Saudi Arabia, Italy, Sudan, Malaysia, Egypt, the British Isles, and the Caribbean. He has received municipal proclamations and the key to the city, as well as the Phi Beta Sigma fraternity's Noble Citizen Award. Currently, with an A-list of intellectual professionals, religious leaders, and career diplomats on the Abraham Family Reunion Project, a national innovative project. Imam Faheem and Yolanda Mahassan have been married for 42 years, 52 years, and from this union, they have 4 children and 3 grandchildren. So I introduce to you one of the foremost intellectuals of Islam in America, Imam Faheem Shuaibe.
I think that the bio, alhamdulillah, is grateful as we are, it's humbling to hear it spoken in the public with my wife, Yolanda Mahassan Shuaibe, sitting right there, my ride or die. I need to correct just a little bit. We started with the 52 years. That will be this year, the 52. And we've had 6 more grandbabies. We got 9. Now we line up for the great grands, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, I'm going to try. First, kind of a caveat, apology, whatever. My PowerPoint presentation of this wouldn't open up for me, so we have a PDF, so we're going to be scrolling up page by page. Inshallah, the effect won't be harmful to the presentation. My goal is to lay out at this point what I'm identifying as the master narrative. The master narrative. Some of you know about the significance of the narrative. It's just so much. I won't launch into that. But you need to know your own story. And a part of the mission this weekend, as I understand it, is for us to understand and for others to understand who are we, where did we come from, what are we going through, and fundamentally, like, where are we going to? And there is a story, and I'll say to you that what's presented here, what I'll be presenting here, I did this first maybe like 2010, not before that, like 2006 or something. So if it turns out I had to struggle really hard, turns out to be some dating material, well, that's why. But the story, the narrative, the reality hasn't changed. So what I'm displaying, what I'm presenting here, this is the story. It's almost like that's my story and I'm sticking to it. That spirit, so to lay down this frame, lay down this context, because there's so many things about who we are, what we are, and how we are. We get so excited. I know I do it. Dr. Wazir, we were together last night on presentation, and it's like you talk about hallelujah type moment. The shouting is just like we were, because once you start telling our story, it's like, you mean really? That's what really happened? And you cannot not be excited about it, especially if you came through it. So let's get to it. So the label here is African American Muslim identity in this country. And I usually give this as an orientation, especially for new Muslims. We have what we call the Shuaibe Institute in Oakland, at the Master Faheem, and it's for new and non-Muslims who want to understand more about Al-Islam. One of the components is understanding Al-Islam in America. And to understand Al-Islam in America, you cannot understand Al-Islam in America without really understanding African American Muslims in America. And so we have this as a component of that institute. And so when we look at this, I'm really going to just be academic, I'll put it that way, to just literally just give you the information, all right? Inshallah. Okay. So, all right. So, to begin, the rise and the fall of African Muslims, the rise and fall of African Muslims. When people talk about how Islam spread and on the continent, there are those that say it's spread by the sword and the like. And of course, we understand that was not the way that Islam, in the most formal way, spread. The general rule of Islam was peaceful penetration, and notably in the case of the conversion of the great African kingdoms, which ultimately became Muslims. So especially in those larger kingdoms, and I'm reading the plates. I have a full script of notes, but I'm reading the plates because it's sufficient for what we want to share. Effectively, you can call this whole presentation an abstract of the whole thing. So, not going note by note, but when we talk about the Songhai Empire, the Mali Empire, the Ghana Empire, each of these became empires at different times and points in history. Songhai became an empire in the 15th century. Mali became an empire in the 14th century. Ghana became an empire in the 15th century. And as a rule, Africans were not stolen by Europeans, but captured in tribal wars. Now, the American chattel slavery was ground zero for what we're talking about as to who are these people who became Muslims in this country. Where was their beginning? Well, their beginning was ground zero American chattel slavery. Imam Muhammad, he said that the physical effects, the spiritual, and our most profound experience was slavery. So in terms of the traumatic impact of that situation, we are still experiencing the reverberations and the realities of those here. To speak of the peculiar institution of slavery itself, so that we can understand the difference between the two types of slavery. Slavery was nothing new in the world. Slavery was nothing new in the world. In fact, the slavery, at a certain point in the history of the world, slavery was just like oil is. You know, I mean, it's like, okay, you need oil in order to run your machinery, right? In the industrial age, you got to have oil. Well, in the same way, we need human beings to do this. We ain't gonna do this work. We're gonna do this work. So slavery became the traffic and trade to get things done in the world, economically speaking. But the script was flipped, if we put it that way, for as far as slavery in America. Traditional slavery was not based on race. It included whites, because you could have white slaves, and whites had white slaves, and it was domestic working soldiers, and you were still seen as a person in traditional slavery. You were not the property of the master, and you could be manumitted. That is, you could earn your freedom. But in chattel slavery, a whole different thing. It was based on race. It didn't include whites. It was solely for profit, and it included total dehumanization. On that word, understand that dehumanization. We're taking you out of being a human being. Total dehumanization. And you were the property of the master, and manumission was not possible. The Stockholm Syndrome. When we talk about the Stockholm Syndrome, something that came about after 6 days of captivity of people in a bank robbery gone bad. And so for 6 days, these people were held captive by the bank robbers, and they came into such a relationship with the bank robber that after it was over, they were willing and wanting to testify on behalf of the bank robbers because of the way that they had become so enamored with their captors, right? And so they have a label for that malady. It's called the Stockholm Syndrome. You see the picture of Patty Hearst there. Patty Hearst, you might remember the Sing Cube situation or whatever that was. And so it was like they said she was suffering from the Stockholm Syndrome, right? Now, the Stockholm Syndrome is a condition that came about in them just after 6 days. So what do you call it when someone is captured and held for 400 years. You call them Negro, that's what you call them. We're going to give some detail on that in just a minute. But there is no kind, so if 6 days will do that to a human being, and actually there's also another one, they did an experiment between Stanford and UC Berkeley, a jail situation. Somebody might know what I'm talking about. What was it called? The prison, it was a prison situation where these guys, are you reading my mind or what? Or am I just sounding rough? So, so the point is that common people were put into, one group was made the prison, another group was made the sheriff or the wardens or whatever. Satan is in the name of it some kind of way. And they told their psychology just flipped completely. Right? So and that's just, they had to stop that particular experiment because they were running into some real serious legal, problems faced in the way that people had just literally lost their mind, just putting on the uniform and look at the Milgram experiment. Let's move on. So the idea is that if 6 days can do that to somebody, what does 400 years do to a people, right? And the only way that you can say what does 400 years do to people is look at what you don't like about black people, quote unquote. Whatever you don't like about black people, wherever you go and see them, it is the reverberation, it is the echoing of what happened in chattel slavery. You can deny it if you like, but you're mistaken. In any case, when any human being is put into a closed system under an absolute master, their personalities change dramatically and sometimes inalterably. Any of you heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza? And your body is a subconscious mind or something. He actually demonstrates in that how it doesn't take 6 days. It doesn't even take a day that you can have impact epigenetically on the individual in 24 hours, right? It can have genetic impact in just a short period of time. What I'm saying also is that those 400 years have brought about genetic changes in us. Some of them good, some of them not good. But in any case, when an individual is in a closed system under an absolute master, it makes inalterable changes in that individual. And whenever a life form is transplanted from one environment into a hostile environment, it only has 3 choices. It can either migrate, change, or die. And so when you look at the Negro, who is the product of slavery, that situation was their situation from the Atlantic slave trade when we landed or were placed here in this country and the process began. Imam Muhammad describes that process as an experimental clinic designed to cause us to dysfunction in the vital areas of our lives. Those areas that we're dysfunctioning in right now, when you think about our economics, when you think about our politics, when you think about our cultural sensibilities, when you think about our academic performance, etc., you can see that in all of those areas, when I say we now, in this case, we're speaking of our preferences, the Latin as a term, but quote unquote black people, we dysfunction. We dysfunction because that was what the operation was all about. The operation was about taking out of you all those things that enable you to do what normal human beings do. That was what the operation was. And they succeeded. Here's a statement. Some of you from the Nation of Islam experience, you might remember in the Message to the Black Man, Henry Berry was the identified senator that is mentioned in this statement, authored by Edward R. Embry in the book Brown Americans, 1946. This statement is from a slave state representative. They said, we have as far as possible closed every avenue by which light may enter into the slave's mind. And if we could extinguish the capacity to see the light, our work would be complete. They would then be on the level of the beasts of the field, and we should be safe. that we have a very specific operation and the design is to dehumanize them, and that's why one of the meanings of Negro means never grow. Just it's a compound word. Never grow. And you look at things like Councilman Basheer was just saying, those things that he was speaking to us about and adjuring us about. These are conditions that is attitudes and failures and shortcomings. Wherever you find us, you find those shortcomings. Why? Because every vital organ for our human performance has been extracted from us, and we haven't quite yet got ourselves back together again. Does slavery have genetic effects? These images that we have right here, many, the story very well. Those are the Polgar sisters. They may not, who knows who the Polgar sisters are? Who knows Vanessa and Serena Williams? Yeah, okay, you know. Tiger Woods, Layla Ali, King Griffey Jr., the Eli, the Manning brothers, right? Kobe, Rahim, good folks. So Paul says, listen, King Richard, everybody knows about that. If you don't really remember anything, you remember the slap heard around the world, right? Because that night at the Oscars was supposed to be there celebrating the great success of that movie, King Richard. King Richard was the father of Venus and Serena Williams. Before they were born, he had a full book blueprint plan to make them tennis champions. He had no background in tennis. Mama had no background in tennis. He just had this plan. This is what we're going to do. He worked that plan, and that plan worked. Laszlo Polgar, which is the father of these women here, the Polgar sisters, his pushback was against the idea that women can't be chess champions because they were none at that time. He likewise devised a plan where I'm going to prove to you that there can be women who are chess champions. And so these were all done. The fathers made these plans, of course, in cooperation with the mothers, from before they were born. And that they were infused with that plan, and the rest is history. So the idea is, does slavery have genetic after effects? If there's a plan in place and you create a generation and you create a situation and you create an environment that calls forth particular potentialities, then that's what's going to come out on the other end. We talked about when something is moved from one environment into another environment has three choices: migrate, change, or die. All right, so if there was however many thousands of millions that arrived during the time of slavery, that was one of those transplanting situations. We had those three options: migrate, change, or die. Okay, obviously we didn't migrate because we're still here and there are more of us than were here at the time. We didn't migrate. We didn't die because the same. We're the evidence of the fact that we have not died. So then we must have changed. Okay? And if we change, that means we adapted. And if you adapted and you survived, you adapted and survived to the environment that you were trying to survive in. So what we have to do is look at what was being demanded of us in order for us to survive, and then we can understand why and how it is that we can become the shuffling, head scratching, bowed down and bent over type that we can be, because it was against the rule even to look the white man in the eye, even to walk in his path. That was the word. If you haven't seen the movie, the docudrama of Origin, anybody seen Origin yet? Oh my goodness, you gotta go see that. If you read the book Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, come on, get behind the curtain. It's very, very serious. All right, Isabel Wilkerson, Cast, the origins of our discontent. It is just so worth seeing. So the point to be understood is that if we survive in this environment, our survival in this environment means that we became what the masters of the environment wanted us to be. And that's what happened. That experimental clinic and then the reinforcement generation after generation. I think there's one statement in the movie itself, and it's also, it is in the book, the idea that slavery and that kind of dehumanization that took place in that part and parcel of the whole chattel slave process, it said it took place over 36 generations. 36 generations. Okay? Okay, and if you survive in those 36 generations, and that environment is demanding that you adapt this way in order for you to survive, you become something totally inhuman, unrealized, unrecognizable as a human being just to survive. I gotta keep going. So in this statement here, does slavery have socioeconomic effects? So I just talked to you about genetics just ever so briefly. Now I'm just moving on to the reverberating effects that are still with us. One of those, to speak of socioeconomic after effects. Now, there was some very, very constructive, very positive, when I say positive, I mean concrete like positive law. I don't mean that they were good. Her last name is Baradari. Baradari. The book is The Color of Money. The Color of Money. Another author, Rothstein, The Color of Law. If you want to see the concrete work in all strata of society, government, etc., that was designed to, even after we've heard about Jim Crow and the like in Dr. West's commentary. So you have this actual slave, concrete slavery within the freedom, and then you have the Jim Crow stuff, and then even after the Jim Crow stuff, we're talking about the Tricky Dick Nixon. That's like you gotta see this. Look it up for yourself. But they ran some game on us, very serious, and the design was anytime you look like you were getting out of the let's go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's just a model of it. Anytime you look like you're getting out of where we meant for you to be, we're gonna tear your snizzy up, okay? We're gonna tear it up. That's what happened every place and every time, okay? Now, so socioeconomic effects. Let me hit this very quick because it's something that's just critical that I'm certain you haven't seen before, and I want to get to it. But so much of what was there is so tempting to go other directions. But so the idea is this on this one, Andrew Hacker, two nations, one white, one black. I think it's separate and unequal or something like that. This is a college professor out of New York somewhere, and every year he starts his economics class by asking a question to the class. It's like, okay, let's imagine that there was a corporation, and this corporation is responsible for everybody in their birth, in their order, in their placement. But let's imagine that, speaking of white students, let's imagine that it just turns out that you were born black by accident. They made a mistake. You were born black. And so it's like, okay, the company that makes this designation, it's no big deal, it's a problem, but whatever. Do you think we owe you compensation? Do we give you compensation? So he's asking his students, do you think there should be some compensation for you because by mistake you were born black instead of being born white? Right? So they go on and they say, yeah. Okay, well, how much? $50 million. That is, you're going to live the rest of your life as a black person. And said, do you think you should be compensated? And yeah, $50 million. So that's the game, right? To lure you in. And he said, okay, well, if everybody's equal, why does it make a difference whether you're black or whether you're white? Why you got to be paid $50 million just because you were born black? That's because you know that it is expensive to be black in this country, and you know that there's economic injustice and unfairness, and you know that. And those are the continuing residual and actual impacts socioeconomic impact that are still reverberating from the experimental clinic. Now, so these are the real effects. So Imam, a quote taken from him, addressing the after effects of slavery. He says a religion that doesn't see the after effects of slavery on African American people, or the effects of slavery on the African American people or black people, is not a religion that's going to have something special to offer to the down and out African person. A religion that will address the plight of the black man from Africa to America and the new circumstances in America for opportunity, I think that religion will offer something special. It just so happened to be Islam for us. But I think any religion that will recognize that will have something special to offer black people or African people, that is a religion that recognizes that will have something to offer. Here we are, African Americans suffer the effects of European myths, right? This is Uncle Remus. This is a big Disney thing, right? Uncle Remus, and then Sambo's Restaurant. A couple of documentaries that you look into. Color Adjustment. That's why these are PBS type documentaries. Color Adjustments and Ethnic Notions. Ethnic Notions cover all the stuff like nigger hair tobacco or darky toothpaste. These black things that were sold, right? You know, the watermelon and the big teeth and all that whole piece. But that was the world. That was what the world subscribed to, and we were subject to that kind of mimicry, if you will, in terms of that. So Sambo, there was a whole nationwide string of Sambo restaurants, right? And then Little Black Sambo, as you see. Now watch this. Let me see if some of you can hear me here. They said the story of Little Baba G. Just raise your hand if it sounds like anything you've heard before. Baba G. Who's heard? You raise your hand up. Let me see. Okay, we got 1, we got 2, we got 3. Any more Baba G's over here? 4, 5. All right, who want to tell me what that Baba G was? Real quick, you got to do it quick because I got to move. Baby G. Who said that? All right, there you go. Stick Tyler, right? Alhamdulillah. Baby G, who's Baby G? You got to stand up so we can hear you. We're going to recognize you too, man, because this is the OG.
Oh, right. That's it. That's it.
Hit it quick for us. Baby G was the mother of Farah Muhammad. And who were we? Come on now, I know you got, I'm testing you on your lessons. Anyway. Look like you were there, brother. Said of the lost foundation in the West, right? Okay, so then. I'm sorry, I'm losing.
First man born, drinking the crop.
Yeah. That part. That was lesson number 1. I wasn't asking you to say all of this. I'm out of my lane already myself. Baba G, okay. Problem book. I'm gonna reach in for somebody now. Okay, let me see. Anybody know or heard of the Problem book? All right. So okay, say that right. All right, let me give you a little bit of what are the lessons. In the Nation of Islam, we have what's called the Problem book. And the Problem book had questions like, how many ducks does it take to drink up the Cadiz Lake? That is, it's like if a duck was on Lake Michigan and the duck drank so much water, how many ducks would it take to drain Lake Michigan? Those were the kind of problems that we were given in the Nation of Islam called the Problem book, right? In the mothership, you ever heard of the mothership? I'm not talking about default mothership. I'm talking about you hear from the Nation of Islam, right? From the Nation of Islam. Okay, in order to get onto the mothership, anybody remember what the requirements were in order for you to be able to get on the mothership? You couldn't weigh more than 150 pounds. If you weigh more than 150 pounds, you ain't getting on the mothership. All right? So that's that one meal a day, that whole thing, he was dealing with it because inside of the Problem book, it was a a manipulative way to get us to do for ourselves nutritionally what we are supposed to be doing for ourselves, because we were eating too much all day, so we were obligated to make this life 1 meal a day. I know you said it, you broke that lesson. I always do that. It's not funny. Okay, so, but what were we called in relationship to Farah? What did he call us? The auntie and the uncle of Farah. All the black people that were here in America, we were called the auntie and the uncle of Farah. That's what it is. And I'm only saying that because Sambo is an African term for uncle. Uncle Remus, right here on the left, Romulus and Remus were the two that were fed by she-wolves, according to their mythology, and Romulus, from where we get Rome, was the one who was able to take the leap and build civilization, whereas Remus was the lazy one, incapable of making the kind of leap that Romulus was able to make, so we become Uncle Remus. That kind of labeling was what gave us our identity in the West. All right? And this is one reason where Imam Muhammad said that Farad was a racist. This is one of the ways he said. Now, the Imam's language about Farad evolved, and he talked about the evolution of that language. But and a part of it, he used to say he was a Jew. Imam Muhammad, I used to think he was a Jew. He would say that. And so much of it is because when you trace the roots back of some of these little symbolic things, not little, they're big things, these symbolic things inside of these lessons, the Jews are in that language. Okay, let me just do it. Whatever happened, that's what happened. Shabazz. When we heard the tribe of Shabazz, we thought in those lessons, that was the first time that it was ever revealed. No, it wasn't. Ask a Jewish person about what they do on the Sabbath, when is the time when they're not supposed to do any kind of work. What do they do in order not to, quote unquote, break the divine law, but still get done what they want to have done? The language that they put to it is the Shabbos Goy. Shabbos Goy. It's Shabbat. Goy is a non-Jew. You have to get someone to, quote unquote, do your dirty work. Because you can't do it because it's against divine law. But if you can find someone that you can manipulate into doing what you want to have done, even though you know it's against the law, then that's your Shabazz Goy. And we were the tribe of Shabazz. A tribe of Shabazz Goy. Doing by way of, he gave us shirk. Farah gave us shirk, not purely for the purpose of shirk, but as a process to transform us out of that horrible condition that the experimental clinic had put us into, and he landed upon a methodology and a strategy for reversing the mindset that was made and built into the Negro, the sleeping, mentally dead, so-called Negro in the wilderness of North America. I don't know. I know for some of you, it's like, that's our life, right? And we talk about the curse of Ham, right? You know about the curse of Ham. The curse of Ham, it's like, and see, that's another thing. See, that's another reason. White folks, why should Bilali's black folk, why are you eating ham? It's telling you ham is a curse. It's telling you ham is a curse. And you just eating ham after ham after ham. I was a bit I'm gonna have to move along. So the Imam speaks here about the need for a social net. I'm gonna pass that. I'm gonna pass that right now, only for this reason. Let's see. We need Imam said. We need something like a social myth as an idea, as a social strategy. He said, we had a spirit to build and structure the African American or the black people. We had the spirit to do that. Our great educators, Frederick Douglass, the great orator and statesman, Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, W.B. Du Bois, the recent educator Benjamin May, so you can know this is a big quotation. The recent educator Benjamin Mays and many, many others, men and women who saw the need to build the structure of life, to build and structure the life and identity of their people, and they made their contribution, but their contribution has been incomplete. Going on, he says, hey, how do other people do it? The Arab has an idea, whether it's myth or fact. The Arab has an idea of his Arab origin. He has an idea of his ethnic spirit, the will that has kept them as a people, the common nature and the common sense and the common aspiration that make them a people that has made their spirit that has survived and lasted. They have an idea, whether it is myth or whether it's fact, and it is a combination of both myth and fact, so it is for the European. The Imam is saying there, in essence, that you need to have a narrative that holds and that embodies your story, and that will revive your will, revive your spirit, sustain your will, sustain your spirit, keep your conviction up, revive your conviction. Even if you put it like this, so that you will have a patriotic spirit towards your destiny, you need to have something that incorporates that, and that's what he's talking about when speaking of a social myth. And I don't know if we're going to get to it, but I'll say it. I'll say it right here. For us, brother and sister, seriously, Bilal is the answer. Very serious. Bilal is the answer to everything that the Imam is saying here. Because his true life, his real history, his actuality, who he was in reality, is an embodiment of this people that suffered the horrible crushing impact of the experimental clinic. The Bilal that is of history is a true representative of who and how we ought to be in order to constantly have our spirit reinvigorated and resurrected, if you will, because he is a reality, he is an embodiment of the best of us. That is, he represents, he's a figure that enables us to embrace and identify in such that no matter what, we've already been doing it, the kinds of things that Bilal suffered in his life at the time of the Prophet ﷺ is only symbolic and emblematic of what these people call Bilalian here, that they have suffered during and after slavery as well. And also the excellence that he brought and that he represents in his life. I have a page, somewhat way down the line. I don't think we can get to it though. But the point is that to identify ourselves as Bilalians, black don't answer the question, African American don't answer the question, color don't answer the question, Negro don't answer the question. There's so many unanswered questions when you take those labels. But when you bring in Bilal, you take that, I'm a Bilalian, then you got all kinds of history and ideology and religion in that, and a history that is truly reflective, that truly mirrors your history as a people. And so to embrace that is the right thing to do. You see, Robert Zerim has already talked about that. Let's move on. Man-made minds. in the absence of divine, because I'm trying to get to, I want to introduce you to Farad in a way that you haven't been introduced to Farad, if you haven't seen what I'm saying. In the absence of divine revelation, society is moved forward by human genius. Some of the most prominent paradigms of religion today are products of man-made minds. So you have the image here of Jesus on the cross. That's a man-made religion, literally. You just gotta read. You can find it everywhere. The Mormons, even the Judaism of today, and this is what we used to have, the Mosque Mary, the Nation of Islam. That all of those were made up quote unquote religions, sanctified ideologies, sanctified philosophies, sacralized philosophies and ideology that became embraced as revealed from God, right? So much to be said about it, but that is the case. And so when human beings find themselves in situations where they need to be rescued from, sometimes Allah, yes, does send prophets and the like, but then there are also those that have the kind of genius that enables them to create, most of the time they turn out to be cults of some type. And people subscribe to those cults, and those cults take on long lives. As some people continue to call anything that's not their religion a cult, or what have you, if there's any personality connected to it. But the point is that is also inside of human nature. What human nature does is it structures what it needs in order to save itself. I'm not going to elaborate on this, but this read the play. The human origins of modern Judaism. Judaism is the name given to a movement back to Judah, which would be Jerusalem, after the Babylonian captivity, led by Ezra and Nehemiah. Quran speaks of the Jews called Uzair, the son of Allah, and the Christians called Christ, the son of Allah. That is the saying from their mouths, and in this they but imitate what the unbelievers of old used to do. Modern Judaism is essentially the product of post-exilic Judaism. Max, I believe his name is Max I. Dimont. I think it's D-I-M-O-N-T. And I think it's called The History of the Jews. He elaborates on where the whole thing comes from. So spend some time there. Now here's a figure there. Who's ever seen this picture right? All right, everybody, right? I'm about to show you something else in a minute. Okay. So the Imam now, to speak of the Nation of Islam, the ideology of the Nation of Islam, Yaqub's history, and all of that. So we're going into that territory right now. So it was a powerful psychology, and no one can have that kind of psychology with that power unless they know the wisdom of Scripture. Never underestimate the Jews who are over their people. They are look up this movie called The Golem, Golem. It's an old silent film. Look it up. This is pre-Frankenstein, and you'll understand where Frankenstein comes from. They'll tell you that Mary Shelley was the one that she a night of teens telling tales, and she came up with the idea in Britain, England. So no. That came from the turn of the century from Jewish mysticism. Frankenstein. They didn't call him Frankenstein. In reality, Frankenstein's monster. But it comes from there. So it's called the Golem, right? Okay. So never underestimate the Jews who are over their people. They are very, very wise. And because they are very, very wise, they are very, very powerful in the world. We've heard reference to that today. And never underestimate Mr. Farad, very, very wise man, and he did a very, very powerful thing, and we are yet to see how powerful that thing is. It truly is. It just truly is. Just move on. That's it. Don't want to elaborate on this too much, but the point is that with the Jews, you know that historically, Paul was a Jew, Peter was a Jew. Christianity came from Jews, okay? what was crafted that became Trinitarian Christianity was crafted in order for the Jews to protect themselves from their quote unquote potential enemies and overlords, if you will, the Greeks and the Romans. Farad Muhammad followed that model, right? Because the ones who gave something other than Judaism to the non-Jews, the Gentiles, were giving them that so that they could be protected from that. They could be protected from the ones that they were given this new religion to. You understand? So I want to defame you as it relates to me. I want you not to be a threat to me. So I'm going to give you a religion that actually makes me your God. Jesus on the cross is a Jew. But that's not what's consciously told to you. Just think about it. How would Jesus be a Christian? Christian is the ones who follow Christ. Let's move on. Let's move on. Work it out. Keep working with it. So they use the Christian paradigm. Farad used the Christian paradigm. He designed a mythology to deceive the people that he feared, the European American Christians. So he used the same model that they used. We can talk about books in the Bible that literally, you talk about grafted, you can find that word grafted in the Bible. You get to that place in Romans where it's the whole story that what the Jews did to the Gentiles, that you get that whole story there, and they were grafted onto the true vine. The Jews were the true vine, and the others, the ones who accepted from Paul, whose mission was to the Gentiles, they were grafted on to the true vine. So they were grafted, they were adopted by the Jews, so that now your reality comes from your connection with us. Moving on. So Farad used that same strategy, right? And then the Nation of Islam became a baby nation on the strategy of Farad Muhammad, and he addressed the critical and neglected aspect of African American consciousness, most particularly the reunion with their human lifeline and with the genesis of a stable and authentic identity. I know I'm saying a lot. But here's the thing. Remember, we got cut off. Remember, the experimental clinic designed to cause us dysfunction in the vital areas of our life. The byproduct of chattel slavery was what is called the Negro. The Negro was something that was not. It's like I use the analogy, and it's the truth about how do you get a mule? You get a mule by crossing a horse and a donkey, but the mule itself is sterile, right? So you create another kind of creature by the inappropriate, how we say, or by manipulation. All right, so the Negro needs to be fixed. The Negro needs to be fixed, needed to be fixed. Farad had a strategy for that. Now, here's something you likely haven't seen. Who knows who the guy is on the bottom? You can see the screen. Who's that guy? Do they look similar? That's H.G. Wells. You ever heard that name? H.G. Wells. Do you think Farad was imitating, emulating that imagery there? Do you remember there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no TikTok, there was no YouTube. The thing at the time of the turn of the century, it was literature. Literature was the thing. And H.G. Wells was in charge of literature in the world. All right. Imam Muhammad said Farad spoke with pictures because his people weren't intellectually mature. He didn't use classic satire, but childish fabrications, like Yaqub's history of the deportation of the moon. Just think about it. We believed. We didn't believe you put on a hell of a good act, man. We believed that a black man that was trying to get black folks to all speak the same language, he was dissatisfied because we cooperating with each other. So he decided he's gonna blow the whole planet up. This is next to the black man. Right? I know it sounds crazy to you, but when we were sitting there, yes sir! Cheese! Cheese on that devil! So, oh man, time flies when you're having fun. Okay. Anyway, so the point is that he put the dynamite, put the TNT there, more powerful than any TNT with him, and tried to blow up the planet. And he only succeeded in separating the moon from the earth. And that the earth dropped so many miles and the moon went out so many miles, and all the water that was on the moon poured back on the earth, and that's where the Pacific Ocean is right now. The moon used to be in there. Come on now. It's funny, a long way crazy, but that we believe it, right? Deportation of the moon, right? And that's why ain't no water on the moon, because all the water poured back on the earth. All right. Why is this important? Because this, one of the things. H.G. Wells was the master of the fantastic. In his time was 1866 to 1946. That was also the period of time where Farad Muhammad was doing his work. He came to us, as you said, July 4th, 1930. Right? So he was in touch with all of the powerful movements in the whole world. Listen to this. Where were the white people made? Who remember where white people were made from the Yaqub Smith? Where were they made? On the island of Patmos. It's right there in the Bible, brother. It's right there on the island of Patmos. Okay, well, all that is, just go back and look at the story. The invisible, the Isle of Dr. Moreau. That's an H.G. Wells story. The Isle of Dr. Moreau, and it's the same thing. It's about it's about the making of men out of animals. But Farad flipped it and says, like, we made white people, and some of those white people were trying to get back to being black people. They only got as far as the gorilla. All right? Okay, that's the story. We believe. Look at the story in The Invisible Man. Not the Ralph Ellison version. The Invisible Man was H.G. Wells' story. When you understand that story, you will also understand it was also about race and someone that was hated because of his skin color. He was an albino. So Farad abstracted from that. He abstracted from the Isle of Dr. Moreau, right? So that's a part of his fantasy revenge science fiction. And that's what Farad did. He gave us a fantasy revenge science fiction. He said Yaqub was a big-head scientist born out 20 miles outside of Mecca. One day at 6 years old, he was playing with two pieces of steel. One was magnetized, the other wasn't magnetized. And he saw that one attracted the other, and that's when he knew that opposites attract. And so then the rest of the story goes on to say, you can't tell that story in less than 6 hours, so I'm not going to stop. All right? So, but H.G. Wells was against Victorian repression. He was trying to change the ethos and the cultural paradigm of his time, and he was using literature to do that. Farad was saying, that sounds like a great idea. I'm going to do that with the Nation of Islam. So I create a revenge science fiction because the black germ, brown germ, nobody talking about black germ, brown germ, especially with us. They said you take the brown germ and separate it from the black germ, and then you take it to its apex, you wind up with a white person. And when you got that white person, now you have a pure devil because all the blacks have been taken out of it, right? That's what we were told in the Nation of Islam. But listen to this. This is what am I doing? Just tell me exactly how much more time I should take.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay, good. So it's fine. No, it's like, it's a big story. It just take it. So this situation with Farad and H.G. Wells, in my other notes, I'll elaborate. What another thing, the Great Gatsby, whoever the other, some guy, F. Scott Fitzgerald, I think his name, F. Scott Fitzgerald. That guy. Inside of the book, Great Gatsby, you have these initialized people. Everybody have the letter, last name. Letter, last name. So, W.B. Farad, which wasn't his real name, W.F. Muhammad, which wasn't his real name, was also a literary take from H.G. Wells. And those people were authors at the time because that was one of the ways, like J.P. Morgan, right? Because that's what it is. So, you just got two initials and a last name. You must be somebody big. It's a status symbol. So WD Ferrari did the same thing with us, right? So he gave himself that name, gave himself that label, and also again put out the literature to do that. But here is the smoking gun. I'm giving you the smoking gun. Wallahi, anybody who knew this before now, you hadn't heard it from me, I give you $100 today. All you got to do is tell me, Faheem, I'm the one. I trust you, I'm gonna do it. $100, right? That's not a bet, that's a promise, okay? Smoking gun. For what I'm telling you about H.G. Wells. One of his most celebrated short stories. And he was known as the greatest writer in the English language at his time. So trust that. How big radio was when it came out, how big TV was when it came out. Well, for literate people, H.G. Wells was the dude you had to read. And so Farad knew that was outside of our sphere, outside of our atmosphere, so he had to worry about us. Oh, I saw that and this and saw it. No, and plus he told us stay away from the, what was that, the 10%. All right, that's a hit back at W.E.B. Du Bois people. Time of the 10. All right, smoking gun. The door in the wall. H.G. Wells. Anybody heard that from H.G. Wells? You got $100 coming. You didn't hear it? You got jokes like somebody else I came up with. Can't keep that butt. All right. A boy. His father was a lawyer and the leader of his people. But the boy had a tendency to daydream. And the boy would take a walk along this white wall. And there was a green door in the wall that the boy would always be attracted to, wanting to go through, but afraid to go through. But it was always calling him that you need to go through that door, but he was afraid because he didn't want to disappoint his father. One day the boy goes through the door and he comes into this great garden. That's enough of the story. But here's the smoking gun. The boy's name was Wallace. SubhanAllah. The lawgiver is Elijah. That's not the name in the book. But the story is there. And I don't know if Imam Darnell has said this there, but most of us know. Where did W.D. Farad tell the family to write W.D. Muhammad's name? They told him to write it behind. Why? Why, W.D. Farad? Why is it important to write it behind the door? Because when they wake up and when they see and when they make the connection between me and H.G. Wells and this story and him and his father, they will know that it was a strategy. So W.D. Farad and Elijah Muhammad and Clara Muhammad, they all worked to produce Wallace D. Muhammad, someone who would be just like the Polgar sisters and the Venus and Serena Williams sisters. Daddy had a plan, Mama had a plan, and W.D. Farad had a plan, and the product was to produce something that you have never seen before. And no matter what I said so far, you still haven't heard the whole story, but I love you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. So alhamdulillah, as I said, you can't teach. If you're burdened by this, it's because you didn't think it was this deep. I'm serious, some people think that whole issue was simple. But that's why we're having these conferences. Some people think they trivialize one of the most significant events in the history of man on earth. Right. That is the movement of African American Muslims in America, and how that came about is one of the most significant events in the history of man's existence on the earth. So it can't be trivial, it can't be small, it can't be simple, none of those things. So that's part of what these conferences are about. Now you know why I said Imam Faheem Shuaibe is one of the foremost intellectuals among Muslims produced in the United States of America. You probably never even considered H.G. Wells and W.D. Farad. And you probably never even considered that W.D. Farad would be influenced by H.G. Wells. You just dismissed him as a Dajjal and a Kafir in a very simplistic way of looking at a very complicated history. So we're going to conclude. We're going to go pray Asr, inshallah. We'll come back at 5:15 and we'll have an open forum where we can engage each other and ask questions. We'll do that for around 45 minutes. We'll have a break in Maghrib, then we'll come for our final sessions. This is the first annual. This is like when you go to a restaurant and you order the spinach dip. Next year, we might get some lobster, maybe. So mark it on your calendars. February, I'm going to give you the date. 2024, inshallah. 2024 Resilience Con. 25, I'm sorry. 25, Resilience Con 2025. Next year, inshallah, we will be back on February 14th, 15th, and 16th. You heard it here first, inshallah. Next year, we'll be back where we can spend more time discussing this history and how thinkers brought about real change in the world. We haven't even begun to touch on the strategy of Imam Waraquddin Muhammad to bring people out of to go behind that door and bring everybody else behind the door with him, on how he got everybody from one side of the door to the other side of the door. Too much time. So let's break for Asr, and then we'll be back at 5:15. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم. Takbir. Allahu Akbar. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I got them hooked up. I couldn't
Yeah, we got to lock in. We got
And then, and if they want to make 2 or 3 minutes worth of general comments, they can make those comments. Then we'll open up for questions and engagement, inshallah. But since the mics aren't working, we have to try to keep the noise. So my first ask is that because the mics are not working, can you move closer to the front, inshallah? If you can move closer to the front, that would help out a whole lot, so that the sound carries better. My second question is that we keep the noise down as much as possible until we get the mics back up, because outside noise will make it very difficult to hear. So I'm going to bring one mic out to the middle of the floor, and that the guests can ask their questions. And then I'm going to leave one mic up here so that the panel can answer their questions. So alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, we're going to start from the right and move to the left with Imam Makram al-Amin, inshallah. And as soon as we get these mics fixed, we'll get them up. You're gonna have it's not gonna work. So just let them know you have stuff. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. I'm Imam Makram al-Amin. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I lead, alhamdulillah, Masjid al-Nur in Minneapolis, as well as El Ma'un, which is our community outreach and programs facet of the Muslim community. Alhamdulillah, I think my interest for our conversation today is really talking about, our infrastructure and where do we go as a community and how do we scale our work and make it more sustainable, inshallah ta'ala. I really want to kind of put that out there for a conversation piece as we go on. I think it's very important as we get a good understanding of our history and where we have come from and how we have evolved. I'm just really reflecting still on Imam Faheem's presentation, was nothing short of remarkable. But the idea of how we evolve and how we continue to advance and scale the work that we are attempting to do, and how do we do it in a way that's sustainable so that we can really give all the best of ourselves to this work. And also with the mindset that as much as we like to think we're still youthful and young, that we won't be able to do this work all the time into perpetuity, and we're going to need to be able to hand some things off to our children and their children, inshallah ta'ala. So we need to be operating begin with the end in mind, as they say, inshallah. So I'll conclude there, and I'm sure as we have the conversation, more and more will come up, but I am delighted to be here with my distinguished panelists.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I bear witness, there's no doubt that Allah and Muhammad is his slave servant. My name is Vincent Amin Ali, and I'm a long time worker in this deen. I originally came into the masjid in Brooklyn, New York, back around 67, 68. I've now been in the community about 56, 57 years.
Inshallah.
I've seen a lot. I came in as a teenager. I was about 19 years of age at the time. I've seen a lot of things. I was with a lot of brothers and sisters in this work. And I've seen a lot of things happening, but one of the things that I see today, and I'm very proud of, is to seeing the younger generation stepping up. There was a time when I looked at it and I said to myself, when are we going to get some help in this work? But now I see the younger generation I see them stepping up and coming forward and taking roles and stuff. Years ago, brothers were in the masjid. They would always talk about how they loved Islam and that they would die for Islam. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the then leader, he challenged the brothers. He said, you brothers always saying how much you love al-Islam and that you're willing to die for al-Islam. He said, but how can you say you will give your life for Islam when you won't give none of your time for Islam? He said, how can you say that you love, you will die for the truth when you will not give any time for the truth? Of which are you telling the truth? And so this is the challenge that we ask each and every one of you today, to be willing to give your time for the truth. We can all shout out to the mountaintop how much we love the truth, but who will be accessible? Who can you call on to help to do something in the way of the truth? And so this is what we are looking forward for today.
Assalamu alaikum. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. My name is Charlotte Shaheed, and I joined the Nation of Islam in 1973 in Miami, Florida. And Miami is my home. I was blessed to make Hajj from that community in 1978. That was a long time ago. About 10 years ago, I moved from Miami here to Houston, and I attend Masjid Warathuddin Muhammad. When Imam Wazir asked me if I was willing to participate in an open panel discussion, I said yes. And when I saw the topic for this discussion, more or less, it said, learning from history and a vision for the future. And that made me sit down and take notes, and I asked Allah for guidance. And the guidance that came to me was to say a few words about what has been the focus of most of my life, and that is youth. I worked as an employee for Miami-Dade County for 35 years, but my job dealt with children. I did inspections of daycare centers and schools that got federal funds, and I did training sessions for teachers to help them get certified. Youth. In my spare time, I was a Girl Scout leader, a Boy Scout leader. I volunteered with Menor Youth Organization, Muslim Youth of North America. I volunteered for 15 or so years with Camp Khalil, and youth has always been my focus. So what I have been hearing through this session today, this conference, in terms of learning from history, that is a focus on education, from the Clara Muhammad school system up to the present day, the importance of educating our youth, and we can't neglect our youth. So I have to speak a couple of words about the youth. When we talk about our vision for the future, the vision I see for our youth is that I want all of them to have the attitude of La ilaha illallah, that they know there is no God but Allah, and that they trust in Allah. What's the word? Tawakkaltu Allah, trust in Allah. If you have the certainty that Allah exists and you trust in him, you can accomplish anything. I want that for our youth. And I want them to understand that I sometimes take photographs. I enjoy taking nature photographs. I want our youth to see that the Quran is the lens that they should use to view the world. The Quran is the lens that we should use. And sometimes cameras have filters. The Quran is a lens and its own filter that they should see the world through the lens of the Quran. That is, see national events, international events, what's happening in their school, what happens with their friends. How do you pick friends? The Quran gives us guidance for all of that. So my vision for the future is that our youth come to see Islam as integral in their lives and not something that you do on Friday for Jummah or do once a week for weekend school. It should be integral. Should be every day. It should be a part of how they think. Imam Muhammad told us that we should think with the Quran. So whatever decisions come up in life, whatever problems you have, you find the answer in Quran. And as wonderful as this conference has been, I have one question. Where are the parallel sessions for our youth? We have all of these wonderful speakers, and I'm enjoying it, I'm getting educated, but where are the integral sessions, the parallel sessions for our youth? We don't want them to feel isolated from the community and feel that their only socialization is with the softball team or public school friends. We want them to have friends within the community, and they should feel a part of the community. So in terms of our vision of the future, I think we need to focus more on including our youth in every single activity we have. So my comment.
Alhamdulillah. You know, there's a story, as you know, the story of Prophet Ibrahim, alayhi salatu wasalam. And as you know the story of Ibrahim, he didn't say that Allah is his friend. Allah called him his friend, the little friend of God. And all of us, I believe, would desire to be the friend of God. We surely wouldn't want to be his enemy. But when you look at what it means to be the friend of God and what it takes to be the friend of God, man, that's a tough struggle that Prophet Ibrahim had to go through. And as you know the story, as we skip it and we go to the story where he was thrown into the fire, and Angel Jibril comes and asks him, do you want me to save you? Now, for those who know that if the prophets were to pray for something, they would receive the answer to their prayer. Now, as I look at the story of Prophet Ibrahim, I can clearly see how weak I am, because I can think of a million things to pray for at that moment. Send me to Hawaii, stop the fire, destroy everybody who created it. I mean, I have a lot more issues than Prophet Ibrahim. But his response was, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is sufficient for me as the disposer of my affairs. Now, all of us are going through some type of fire. Every last one of us in here has some type of issue. And if you say you don't, then lying is your issue. We all going through something. I don't care if it's financial, relationship, emotional, mental, physical, whatever it is, we are all going through some type of issue. As Prophet Ibrahim is thrown into the fire, his response, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. And look at what Allah does to the fire. He tells the fire, be cool. That's something. And not only be cool, but be a place of comfort for Ibrahim. You see, no matter what fire you're going through, if you and I embrace that Allah is sufficient, whatever fire you are dealing with, He will make it a place of comfort for you. You know, when you look at our brothers and sisters in Gaza, and you see these young girls and young boys responding with so much strength and saying, no matter what the Zionists do, we ain't leaving. Allah has made this fire a place of comfort for some. And I say to you that the fire is a very interesting creation of Allah, where it is also a place of cleansing. And you don't really know who you are until you get in the fire. There's certain lessons that you can only get in the fire. Matter of fact, you don't even know who your friends are until you get in the fire. Until the gas tank is on E and the bank account say insufficient funds, that's when you know who really with you. That's when you know. But when we embrace the fact that Allah is sufficient, whatever fire you're going through, Allah will make it cool. So I see the wisdom of Prophet Ibrahim of not asking to remove the fire. Like me, as a weak human being, I may ask, oh Allah, please remove this fire from my life. The other day, my son, he lost his basketball game. Like he was hurt. He was hurt. He's not that good, you know, but but he was hurt, you know, he was hurt. And he was crying, you know. And I said, son, even if I could remove this pain from you, I wouldn't. Because it's a lesson that comes in this pain. You see, pain can sometimes be your greatest inspiration. It can be your greatest motivation. You don't know who you are until your heart is broken. The contents of your heart, then you know. Then you know. So I say to you, as I say to myself, that the faith in Allah is the key. In knowing that Allah is sufficient, and being patient, but also working toward the goal in whichever way Allah is leading you. You know, I'm so blessed to be here amongst you. Wallahi, man, I've never wanted more. To my auntie here and the Imams here, I've never wanted more than to make the Muslims proud. I never wanted more than to make the aunties and uncles who sacrifice for us to be Muslim proud. You know, to let you know that you have produced some seeds and that there is a harvest and that we are out here and we are striving and you didn't go through the battles that you went through for nothing. And I want to say to you that it's very important that we don't disrespect the womb that we came from. And don't be foolish, not you, but our families and friends, don't be foolish to ever curse our journey here in America. Don't you ever curse the Nation of Islam. And be foolish into believing that I tell people, well, theology, I say, well, your theology calls you to do nothing. And whatever it is that you say or this, whatever, but that theology calls them to love their people. And no group of people, in my opinion, and in my studies, no movement in America, Muslim movement, had a greater impact on community than the Nation of Islam. And as you continue through Imam Muhammad, and as you continue through where we are today, no movement, well, how can you say that, Basheer? Number one, what the Nation of Islam did, what they produced amongst themselves, you haven't seen movements produce people like Muhammad Ali. You haven't seen no movement produce people like Malcolm X and Sister Clara Muhammad and all of these girls. You haven't. So what they were able to do amongst themselves within their ranks, mashallah, so powerful. The businesses that was created, the land that was still today. There's masjids and still today from what the nation did. So what they did. Secondly, how they impacted those around them. Still today in America, if you ask the average African American about Muslims, they are going to mention the Nation of Islam. Today, they're going to mention Minister Farrakhan. They're going to mention the Honorable Elijah Muhammad Sinclair. They're going to mention, so the nation had an impact on the surrounding community, and the nation impacted world culture. How did they impact world culture? Because they impact hip hop, and hip hop impacted world culture. And you look at any rap artist that you want to mention from the 80s up until now, I tell people all the time, if rap music had a religion, it would be Islam. Because you will find that the Muslims, from Rakim to Lil Durk, all the Muslims. Now, they may not be the best of Muslims, and I know I'm not. But the fact is that Islam has had that impact. So never for us to ever disrespect the womb that we came from. And as Dr. Sherman Jackson talks about, we have these different resurrections that we have to go through. And this is who we are today. So I say to you, thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you've done. I promise you it was not for naught. I promise you that we are here. And I say to you, as my auntie just said, she didn't know she's my auntie, but she's my auntie. I say to you that we're ready to serve. To the elders in the room, this is like some inside conversation, but I say this with all due respect to you. Like we 40, we're not little boys no more. But brother, you gotta serve. Brother, we 40 now, brother. How long do we have to serve for? Allow us to be in position to serve. We can't go to masjid with all due respect. I say this respectfully. You go to some of the masjids, and it's only filled with elders who are still on post. And the young people are not there because they don't feel wanted or appreciated. You go into some masjids, and babies are playing, and you have the brother, hey, tell the baby to be quiet. They can't come in here. It's like, well, okay, you telling women not to come, you telling young people not to come, you telling children not to come. So what you're really saying is there's no future for this masjid. And if you're not careful, just in a couple of years, this masjid will become a church, synagogue, or a nightclub. The only way that we can move forward is that the baton has to be passed. And what that means is that us as the young people, we have to hold on tight to these elders, and we have to sit with them, and we have to gain from their wisdom. And we have to sit at their feet, and we have to ask them questions, and we have to talk to them, and we have to gain from them on how to become husbands and wives, and how to be strong, and how to be this, and how to be that. This is the only way that we're going to move forward. So I pray that we can look at creating a 100-year plan. And it has to be filled with education. I call it C. If any community wants to have a vision, you must be able to see. S-E-E. Okay? S-E-E. Number one, S, there has to be a spiritual foundation. There has to be a serious track of learning Islamic knowledge. We cannot be fooled about and be mistaken about our theology about who Allah is and who Allah isn't. We have to have a serious connection to Islamic knowledge. And I'm not talking about filtered by the Middle East. I mean, this is why Imam Muhammad was so powerful, because he was able to filter the knowledge in the way that we can understand. And this is very important. So spirituality. I remember I was in Gambia with Sheikh Mendez, who you all are blessed to have here in Houston. And we were sitting in Gambia together and discussing about spirituality and how to, black people, man, we're very spiritual people. You could be in a nightclub. I don't know about that. But you could be in there with a bunch of gangsters, and somebody come to the microphone and say, all right, man, we're gonna say something to God. The gangsters of gangsters are gonna say, okay. And anybody talking, be quiet. So we're just a spiritual people. That's just who we are. So spirituality. The next E is education. Education. If our community is not educating our youth. If you don't have a daycare, a school, something to this effect, then we are behind. That means that somebody else is educating your children. So we have to educate our own. And the last E is economics. There must be an economic plan for our institutions. As I said earlier, chicken dinner fundraisers and fish fries is not enough. It is not going to move us forward. I mean, the fish is good. I mean, we cook some good fish. Our bean pies, nah. I'll be surprised that some people still haven't ate bean pies. I'm like, you haven't had a bean pie? No, man. He got it. Good. Spirituality, education, economics. This is the only way for us to have a vision to move forward in our community. Thank you all so much.
Hey man, I'm not sure what the format will be. Just questions. So again, I think the point of this is really to invite us into a conversation. And if there are some questions that, based on what any of the panel has mentioned or something related to that, please, this will be the time to ask that. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. But did you notice like you held on to me when you said elder like that?
He's only a couple years older.
This guy said, no.
I don't know if you, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say this. I don't know if you all know this gentleman right here. Do you know him already? We recently went out to Minnesota. It's Minnesota, right? It is Minnesota, isn't it? It's Minnesota. Okay. We go so many places, we sometimes forget. But we went out to Minnesota and celebrated. Imam was there. You remember Imam Akram? He did 25 years of service in his community, and it was a big banquet there. And at this banquet, of course, the Muslims showed up, but you will be surprised how many non-Muslims were there to celebrate the Imam. And this is the key to success. When you see not only are we Muslim amongst Muslims, but you Muslim amongst non-Muslims. You're not just a leader amongst Muslims, but you're a leader amongst non-Muslims. And to be there and to see his service, and we got a chance to go out to George Floyd Memorial, and to see the young people and others just run up to him. Like, this is the type of servant that we have to be. So I just wanted to make sure that I honored him in service.
So while we're waiting for our first grade question or comment to come up, one thing that our brother mentioned I think is very important to those who sacrificed, like my parents joined the community in the late 1950s. This was a dozen or more years before we were even born. And so this is all I know, all we know as a life. But many times, we think about things, and sometimes, our desire or want more, the urgency to have more may cause us to neglect or overlook what is actually happening, what is actually taking place. And I echo the sentiment to say that for those who have sacrificed, many have gone, now been passed on, and others, but your work, your sacrifice did not go for any, it isn't for naught. It isn't for naught. There are a lot of our peers that are doing phenomenal things. Now, we still need to have better connectivity. We do need to have that, but Muslims are impacting this country in phenomenal ways from our community. We are still in touch. We have networks. We still have. But we can do more. We can do more, inshallah, just to be more cohesiveness. But it's not, everyone hasn't gone away. Everyone is not, has left the mission and things that's not the case. That would be factually untrue. It would be factually untrue. So we want to also say that for those who are here, and many, many more of us who are not here today.
Assalamu alaikum. So my name is Aisha Rashid. First, I have to do a little bit of a advertisement for the Muslim Culture Con. There's a group of young adults that are working on getting more engagement. Our target's at 18 to 40, and we have to do that large catering because, as you can see, there's not many of us in here right now. I don't know if Fatima Ali is in here, but she's also on the board. We are going to be having a retreat for the young adults, October 25th to 27th. I have to look at it because we're still in the planning process. So I saw up there, the first thing that caught my eye, I saw Black Family Day, May 27, 1974. I was like, oh, that sounds like something that we need to, bring back. So, we would love mentors that can help us, the things that you guys did back in the day. I hear so much about the Nation of Islam. You guys are like literally in the trenches. So, a lot of us, we have these big ideas, but we don't know how to put them into place. So Muslim Culture Con is working on it. We have Muslims from Atlanta, Florida, up near like DC area on the board. But, we still need help because all of us, we've never done this before. And then it also goes back to what Sister Charlotte was saying. Our age range is 18 to 40, but I think you were also talking about younger as well. Because that's exactly what I thought when I was thinking about coming here, because I was talking to some of my younger brothers. And, they were like, we wouldn't come to these kind of things because we're just sitting here listening to lectures all day. That might hurt some people to hear that, but some of the youth, that's not what they're interested in. So, we definitely need those. And we need you guys to help us. And y'all can, go back and be like, you guys used to plan this kind of stuff. So, going back to the mentorship that the Imam mentioned as well, we definitely need that. So,
I would like to just say one thing about that. I think, yes, collectively, we can definitely help this. But one of the things that I know that we can do, and I know that a few of us in the room right now too, is Muslim Culture Con should write a letter for a proposal to support your budget. To support your budget. And you should submit that to us. And we are obligated to respond to you. Right? So I think that one of the ways we can do very tangibly is to seed the conference, inshallah. So that's something that can happen, and you should feel no kind of way about that. Don't feel no way like maybe, no. Come with that. Okay, so that's one thing that we'll offer to you, because again, this is one of the learning for years ago. We chaired the National Young Adult Association, NYAA, and we understand what goes into this, and not having no money. It's a little bit of an ugly challenge, but we can help with that. Alhamdulillah, several of us now who have been through this experience, and we understand the value of what you all are doing. So my ask to you is that you make an ask of us, and we will respond to you.
yes, thank you.
Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. It's 6, so we need to break, inshallah. We pray Maghrib at 6:15. We'll meet back here at 6:30 for the final program in which we honor the 50 years of work of Imam Eugene W. and Dr. Daiya Farouk, inshallah. So alhamdulillah, thank you. Thank the panelists. Give some love. Give some love to our panelists. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. We want to thank them. Sister Martha Ali, Brother Vincent's wife, was originally to be on the panel, because I know some people asked where that they didn't understand how many women were in the program, so they were like, so we, mashallah, we that was part of the plan. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. And so we're going to break down Maghrib 6:15. We meet back here at 6:30 to convene. Please come back and celebrate the end of this. And if you didn't hear earlier, February 4th, inshallah, February 14th through 16th, Resilience Con 2.0, inshallah, the second annual Resilience Conference in Houston, 2025, I'm sorry. So February 14th through 16th, 2025, mark your calendars and plan to be back with us again next year. Assalamu alaikum.